This is Big Man Tyrone, and you're about to watch the MtG Cabal cast with your hosts, Woad, Thirsty, and Reptar. Sub to us on all your podcast networks at MtG Cabal Cast and YouTube.
Hey guys, welcome to the newest episode of the Cabal Cast. This week is another kind of downish week in the MTG finance world. We obviously had the Mythic Invitational last weekend, so there's some stuff from that. We are mid-war spoilers.
Yep.
So we have some picks related to that, at least I do. And we're going to cover this best of one kind of push that Wizards is making, what that means post-Mythic Invitational, as well as a general topic of just what's happened to Sealed and how it's changed over the years. So with that, let's get it taken away.
All right. So this past weekend, we had the Mythic Invitational at PAX East, which was filled of 64 players and a split of pros, Magic pros, and Magic personalities / other game pros. And that ran from Friday to Sunday, culminating with a win by Andrea Mengucci.
Yep.
Who's somebody I've been following for the past couple of years. I've been waiting for him to pick up a big win, and this is...
Pop, yeah. This is as big as it gets.
Yep, great to see. And the event as a whole was pretty interesting to watch. On and off, it swung between boring as hell and incredibly interesting.
Yeah.
On day one, we got to see what we would see all weekend in the Esper Mirrors. We had Jerry Thompson timing out of the game with an external 45-minute round clock that apparently nobody was made aware of, it seems. And
losing the life total.
Yep. And we saw in the Masterminds acquisition deck what can happen in this kind of inbred format where you don't need to dedicate a sideboard to anything. You can have a full 15 card sideboard dedicated to everything.
Yep.
And it created this kind of interesting glimpse into what the higher level best of one metagame looks like. And compared to anything else that WotC has done in regards to promotion for this game, was probably some of the best we've seen, and hopefully starts a trend moving forward. I went back and forth between it and Moonbase Market's Legacy stream over the weekend.
Thanks for tuning in, anyone that watched that. I was, of course, doing commentary.
But yeah, the dead time between rounds in the Mythic Invitational was killer. They just kept running the same 4 promos. So
yeah, that's something they need to work on. But
yeah,
neither here nor there.
No, overall it was great. But coming into that, the reason we wanted to talk about this was because we got a second kind of the first public push, but the second push overall from WotC in regards to what a best of one standard looks like. And it's this article by Marshall Sutcliffe, who basically kind of guises his article as what to expect at the Mythic Invitational. And you read it, and it makes sense. And he basically retreads everything that they went over when they announced the best of one format for the Mythic Invitational, and he also covers a lot of what you can expect from a best of one format. But this is the second piece of intel that we've received from WotC that might be pushing something like FNMs to be best of one. The first was an email that was sent out to LGSs months ago, I think towards the latter portion of 2018, and I couldn't find it, but I'll try and link it in the show notes. That asks LGSs to begin to experiment with their draft format to make it more like Arena, but in paper. So you draft and you play in pod, but you only play best of one and you play upwards of 5 rounds. This way players get the maximum amount of experience with these cards. So this does kind of look like we might actually be seeing best of one standards, or maybe even pre-releases moving forward. Which creates a brand new financial environment. Forget all the niche formats that we've talked about and all the niche formats you can imagine. Best of one being picked up at the LGS level does mean that things like Masterminds acquisition and cards that work oddly from your sideboard or better from your sideboard now can take a completely different financial trajectory than we've seen before. I dismissed Masterminds acquisition as a bad diabolic tutor before, because it costs 4, right? You don't play that card in standard.
Yeah.
But you do when you can go fish for anything in your sideboard, when it's a better Death Wish, essentially.
Yeah. That was insane.
It was. And from this over the weekend, we did see Masterminds acquisition pop. I think the 6 CMC enchantment, the Orzhov one, that's like a little bit of Elish Norn, a lot of it of making tokens.
Yeah.
That popped. And it's not a bad deck overall to be playing in Standard right now.
Especially for best of one. You get a 75 card list.
Yeah. And this event also began to highlight the fact that mono white aggro and mono red aggro are pretty much where you have to be in this Standard format right now if you want to be just quick and get things done.
Yep.
They are the de facto best decks. There was no green decks in this best of one, aside from Reed Duke, but I think he exited at round 2 alongside LSV.
Yeah.
And it does kind of cast the future of Standard in an interesting light, because you have to try and figure out, based on the 2 announcements that we have, where WotC is going, and do you want to play this aspect of the game, and figure out if this format is going to be something you want to dip your toes into financially.
Yeah. It's either going to happen or it's not. I don't really care. I'm not going to spec on it, but I think that specking on things that are decent in Standard and busted completely in half in best of one, like Mastermind's Acquisition, because that is also an EDH card. That type of stuff, and if you're on the fence, factoring in the best of one upside, I think is where I would want to be.
Yes.
Personally, because WotC still cannot get its head out of its ass. They had Rich Hagen doing behind-the-scenes production. I know you hate him, but I love the guy.
Scenes, he's fine. I don't mind him when he's behind. When he's behind the camera and he's not trolling coverage by putting up cards that are completely irrelevant to the game. The guy can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, he can do whatever he wants when he's behind the camera. I love the Madden. I love the do nothing. My favorite Madden quote, and I can absolutely see Rich Hagen saying this. I love Hagen because he's the Madden of Magic coverage.
Yes.
If the defense doesn't get anything done on this play, they're just not going to get anything done. I love that type of color commentary, and he has this passion for the game that just.
I get it.
We digress.
Yeah. It's fine.
But I don't think I'd want to spec hard on best of one if it was me. I could absolutely see Wizards again, and I've said this before in the podcast. I think 5 years by mismanagement or design, Paper Magic's probably done. Mm-hmm. I think if they want to do it by design, they shift to best of one. And I think if by design they want to do it, they start fiddling with the mulligan rule every year. Oh wait, they already are. Sorry. So I could see best of one happening. I don't want it to. I don't think it does. I think it's unlikely that it gets pushed very hard in paper.
Yep.
Just because while the pros have said that, best of one is great, the overall feel from players that I'm getting at like the LGS level is they don't want it.
I can understand that. There are a lot of games that have failed that were best of one to some degree. Dating as far back as I can remember to the original Star Wars TCG, where in every round you had to play your light side deck and your dark side deck.
Yep.
Yeah. I think the only one that's still surviving is Hearthstone.
Yeah.
And it's not it's very much exactly the Mythic Invitational works. I know I've touched on this before because it's the Hearthstone light model they're using, where you're bringing 2 decks for a best of 3 in essence, but you're only playing each deck mandatorily once.
Yeah, similar to the light side, dark side.
Yeah, in Hearthstone you have whatever the tournament tells you, number of decks minus some bans, right?
Yeah.
And that model works just fine. It's just a little too overbearing for Magic.
Yeah.
You have to ask people to really dedicate to Arena, and at that point you can't have your actual paper pros splitting their time between figuring out best of 3 and 9 decks for best of 1. That just can't happen.
Yeah.
I like the best of 1 format for promotional events like this. I had a friend on the floor of PAX East whose parents came right off the boat from Poland, and I let him know that Gregorz and Piotr were there, and he just kind of hung out for a couple rounds watching it. Without those guys there and the big booth, he probably wouldn't care about the game at all anymore.
And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and because it's quick enough, he hasn't been playing Magic. Last time he picked up cards over 10 years ago. But things were clear enough that he was able to understand what was going on, because Arena is really good for that kind of demonstration.
Yeah.
I don't like the format in paper at all, best of one. And I don't think moving in on dedicated cards for a best of one format is the way to go. Even if WotC does say this is going to be an alternative format you can choose at an F&M, it's still not going to be the Grand Prix level event. It's still not going to be the Mythic Championship level event.
No.
And LSV put it pretty succinctly in the rundown that he and Marshall did on Sunday. That was the LR for last week. It wasn't the Friday one. It was Sunday after the event. And LSV said that best of one with the mixed background players is one of the best ideas they have had for a promotional level event, especially with the prize pools that are this large, because you can just pull from all over the place and give people enough time to kind of learn, experience, and experiment with the game in preparation for an event like this. It's a little harder for people like BDM, who had to cover for Owen on 2 days' notice, and was the streamer from Spain that had to cover for the streamer from South America who couldn't get it. That couldn't
South
get their
America
visa.
was, Yep.
So for those two people, it was probably a little worse off than everybody else. But the prize pool is ridiculous for a promo level event like this, and dropping the prize pool for a paper level Mythic Championship makes sense, because you're going to have more of them in a year.
Yeah.
And they're not meant to be the glitz and glamour kind of events. Yeah. The arena ones do make sense to pay out more for. And this is something I didn't agree with until I listened to what he said. Paying $10K more overall in the prize pool for an arena event seemed kind of very slap in the face-ish to me, if I as an outsider looking at the pros. But arena garners more eyeballs overall, which means it's more ad spend, more entries into the game. It makes sense to pay more for those events to get a higher production value out of them, because you create a larger cash flow that way.
Yeah, it's, you also have lower overhead on those, and again, the people that scrubbed out in the beginning still netted $7,500 on the weekend, because their PAX badge was paid for, their travel badge was paid for, everything.
Yeah, everything was comped. Yeah.
Why would you not do that? And
exactly.
For a promotional event, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I just hope this isn't the type of thing that they swing over. And I would like to think that WotC had contacted, a couple streamers and BDM and some other people before to say, hey, you're alternates for this in case something happens and it ends up that we were right about Owen all along. It's... I thought it was well done, and I've been very skeptical of Arena on this show and any social media you can catch me on. I think it's garbage. This looked like a semi-pro esport event.
Yes.
Which, when I say that, I mean production level. Because like you said, they're playing the same 4 promos over and over. Like, they're figuring it out. That's fine. I thought it looked good from an esports perspective, so I won't say hats off to you, WotC, but you may have gotten something right.
Yeah, there's a lot you can sit around and nitpick about, but I think the overall presentation was great. And as far as best of one is concerned, deep down, I think it will go the way of this best of one draft. They'll offer it up to LGSs. Sure, you can do a custom like you can now in WAR and fire off a best of one. But it is no place that I want to be financially, because you will get these weird corner case rares that are only good in best of one. And if you want to look at odd supplemental formats that WotC has supported in the last 18 months, enjoy your Brawl deck.
Mm-hmm.
That format is dead and gone.
Yeah.
Right? So there are some crossover cards that, if best of one does become a thing, that just kind of constantly trucks along, even at a low level, that you can definitely look at. One of them is going to be my pick for the week, and I'll get to that later on. But like Thirsty mentioned, Mastermind's Acquisition is not just a best of one card. It's not a standard card, but is also an EDH card, because you do get a Wishboard in EDH. A lot of people forget that. The rules committee has said that you get I believe it's still 15 card Wishboard. So even if you use something like Death Wish that says, and what's the original one? Ring of there's like an Antiquities card that lets you go fish for something from completely outside the game. From your collection, basically, is how they worded it.
Yeah.
It's still all attached to that 15 card.
Yep.
Right. So I think that's a fine card to pick up as throw-ins. Like,
Yeah.
Whatever. But moving on, though, we want to talk a little bit about sealed product. And this is going to be kind of an intro level talk, and then we're going to dive into this over a couple of episodes because there's been a lot of sealed over the history of the game. Each piece of sealed kind of means something different. Some of those pieces of sealed can have a prize inside, just full of misprints.
Yeah.
Masks block, especially.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And the format of sealed has changed over time. And we want to do our due diligence, and much like the graded card conversation, break it up over a number of episodes to make it easily digestible and easy to figure out.
Yeah.
So
broad strokes that we want to cover is pretty much like booster boxes and how that's changed. Everyone's seen, or maybe if you haven't, check out his timeline. Evan Irwin, Mr. Orange, has his 401k picture that he posts. And it's literally a case of every set dating back to antiquities. And it used to be that you could get a case of Guild Pact and you could sit on it for a year and it would be worth twice what you paid, even if you paid wholesale.
Yep.
And, that's not necessarily the case anymore. We have Aether Revolt and Kaladesh masterpiece sets with masterpieces that are worth a ton that have just started getting back to MSRP after almost 2 years. And one of the reasons that's changed is because similar to when the foil rarity changed, because it used to be you would average 0.7 foil rares per box.
Yeah.
And then that was in Urza's Legacy. Then they changed it and they upped it again. And now it's almost 2 per box on average. Yeah. So they increased print run at Ravnica. And then they increased print run again at Origins, I believe.
A little, yeah, it was a little. When you say Ravnica, you mean Return to Rav?
Yeah, Return to Rav. Sorry, RTR. Yep. Yeah. And with that, you started seeing that these at-will prints, which were always a thing, were actually just, all right, well, we have a sell-through. Sure, distros still have some in their warehouse, but getting rid of that is their problem.
Yeah.
Not ours. So Wizards started just pumping and pumping and pumping out this product. And from an LGS level, I can tell you that even with Wizards Direct gone, distros have picked that slack up. They're getting that. It's not like all of a sudden there's less product out there. Distros just end up with more of it. So there hasn't been a drop-off in that. But the thing is now you have 3 standard sets at a time that are print at will. So Dominaria just last week went out of print. And now War is in print. So that means that Dominaria, being the oldest set, was effectively in print for 9 months.
Yes. Yeah.
And
it was the fallish release?
Yep. So we had Dominaria 3 months there before Guilds, 3 months there before RNA, and 3 months there before War.
Yeah.
So with that, what has happened is you've started to see a lot less elasticity in these prices. They're not rebounding as quick. So it's not really worth it to buy a case of some standard print product and sit on it.
No.
Supplemental sets, totally different story.
Yep.
Those are rebounding, and it got quicker and quicker. You had MM17 that took about 7 to 8 months for sealed to rebound, and then you had Ultimate Masters that took 3 to 4.
Yeah, it was very
if
cool.
that. And it wasn't just the fact that there was only one print run, because we've seen stuff with like Battle Bond, and Unstable has even started rebounding a little bit faster. So it's not just these Masters sets; it's the Chase supplemental product that might be an at-will print, such as Modern Horizons, but the allocations on those for the first runs, we've been told, are going to be a little bit smaller.
Okay.
So while it is an at-will print, at-will may be a little bit closer with these to, do distros still have them in their warehouse or nah? Because if they don't, or if they do, we're not going to print any extras. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
So that's something to be mindful of, because if you are still on the sealed train, you've got to remember your time is not what it was.
Correct.
I just sold an Aether Revolt and 2 Kaladesh boxes for $275 because I couldn't get any bites at 300.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know what? Fine, get it out of here because I've been sitting on these for 2 years now.
Yeah.
And they're just taking up space, and I'd much rather, throw that at a couple boxes of Modern Horizons and just sit on those for a while, and that's what I'm doing.
Yep. And there's something to be said too about picking your battles when it comes to which sealed product you want to buy into. And a lot of people like to cite certain sets like Return to Ravnica as being a great set and Khans of Tarkir as being a great set, but both of those had extremely high value reprints in them. Other sets in that block, Dragon's Maze and Fate Reforged, were clunkers. While they still did contain some of those reprint cards, the percentage chance of getting them is much lower because of how, it was a nicety that they were put in the set, but the rest of the cards in that set just were not impactful. And that's something that you have to be mindful of when you're moving in on a standard set that doesn't have anything like an immediate high value reprint or something like a Masterpiece series card in it like we're seeing.
Yeah.
Buy a box promos don't count, though. It's been a thing forever. They're their own little caveat.
Yeah, especially now.
Yeah. And so unless the set is just bonkers for standard, and you won't know that for a while, sitting on small quantities does not often do you justice for the amount of space it's going to take up and the amount of time you're going to have to sit on it before you can churn a profit.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, even with Fallen Empires, when Fallen Empires came out, the set may be garbage now, but when it came out, those boxes still had value shortly after release. Chronicles, different story. After that, Sealed took a little bit of a hit.
Yeah.
But, you look at it now, and you've got, Avacyn Restored boxes are what? Almost $300, $300 a piece now? That's not going to happen with Kaladesh. There's no way.
No, it's part of that flashpoint that you mentioned prior to Return to Ravnica, and that, AVR into Return to Rav is just a core set difference.
Yeah.
We didn't have infinite printings. We weren't in this push to maximize the player base. So the percentage difference between Return to Rav and everything prior is incredibly large. And then again, that other bump, while small, does make a difference in current sets. The timeline for moving them is much longer. But if you're the kind of person that can also buy in bulk, sometimes waiting on getting into these sets as well is worth it because you will get a wholesale discount from distro. There are people out there that just buy and sit on infinite stock. Alpha Investments is very public about that. He keeps buying Dragon's Maze whenever it's up. Thirsty and I both know a gentleman from Kentucky who does nothing but put Sealed in his warehouse, and he just buys it as it comes out. Every
Stashes.
Every store that he owns, including his furniture stores, gets distro for Magic because all he has to do is put packs in there to say he can sell them.
Yep.
And these guys sit on huge quantity. There was it Battle? No, not Battle, Unstable, that a group of people in Europe, individuals, bought up the majority of the supply from distro and just sat on it for a while, kind of artificially inflating the basics for a little while. And I don't know if that's still the case and if they've done it for anywhere else.
He did it with Unstable and Battle Bond. He hasn't done it with anything else. He tried it with Commander's Arsenal 2, and that did not work out. Yeah. So, oops.
Yeah, but these are all big, high-value holds.
Yeah.
Because Sealed does take a lot of room. So you've got to be able to sit there and let it mature.
Yeah.
This is a physical
And if you're just working out of your house or something, you're not going to have the space. It requires a warehouse at this point to really make it work. And it's just not worth if you're a layman.
Correct. If you want to grind a little bit of profit and churn a case of standard for another case of standard in a couple of years, you can definitely make a small percentage off of that. But the space you need to make a decent amount of money, it is incredible. If you want to move into the short run supplementals, those are a lot easier to flip in a shorter timeline to make a lot more money. That's actually where I focus when it comes to Sealed, but I don't hold that much. I spread out a little bit. I think the most of any one product I have is probably a dozen of the original. No, the second run Grixis EDH decks that have Toxic Deluge, Enter, and Name Nemesis in there.
Yeah.
I bought every one of those I could find at MSRP, and I think only if Toxic Deluge or True Name get one more printing, I think I lose out at MSRP if I don't start
Sure.
moving those sealed. Yeah.
Yeah. Fine.
But
Yeah, that's the type of thing that, which, funny you mentioned that. Stay tuned, guys. We'll cover that type of stuff in a future episode.
Mhm.
But that's the stuff that just like doesn't, you have to be careful.
Yep.
Because you can just eat it, especially on the modern supplemental stuff, because the reprint equity that is there because none of it's reserved list anymore.
Correct. And there's a proven track record that they will reprint anything and everything in any kind of supplemental they can.
Yeah. I mean, Cons is a great buy right now, especially with fetches on the way up.
Mm-hmm.
But what's to say we don't have Modern Horizons and not a Masters set in the fall that has fetch lands?
Yeah. Or what people have been asking for in the tricolor fetch lands. You make it some mythic rarity, or not some, but a mythic rarity. And you just have tricolor fetch lands, and now your other fetch lands aren't necessarily obsolete, but they're second tier lands now.
Yeah.
Or some people are asking for monocolored fetch lands. And then now one of the drivers for random red lands in Burn doesn't need Scalding Tarns anymore.
No, they just need Fetch a Mountain.
Yeah. That's all they need. Just get it in play untapped.
Yep.
And so the point we want to drive home in this initial episode about sealed is that it can definitely be lucrative. You have to pick a sealed product you want to move into in appropriate quantities. Make sure you are comfortable holding it for the time period that you're going to have to. In the case of current standard, you're going to be looking at years. If the set is an absolute garbage, just dumpster fire, it could be even longer. I don't know if Oath of the Gatewatch has begun to recover at all, despite having masterpieces in there, or expeditions, and they're all poop. Ancient Tomb is in there. Wait, and Dust Bowl? Ancient Tomb?
Yeah, I think those are the two, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, that's it. They gave all the equity to Battle for Zendikar.
Yep, great. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Oath is slowly recovering, and I think Kaladesh and Aether Revolt have finally broken past the MSRP line. It was over the summer, I think, that we finally crested past.
Yeah.
And made it there. Otherwise, people were only hunting masterpieces, because you could still buy over the summer Soul Rings, and you could still buy Monocrypts. Once those disappeared, you can kind of see a correlation into the rise of those sets, just because it's effectively the only place to get them, or they've been slowly bought out off the market in the US and Europe, which is what we were tracking for a while, and quantities that kind of went unnoticed. Yeah. And it was just all of a sudden, poof, they were gone. Just natural attribution over time, and then gone.
Yep. It was, it's been interesting to see, and now I just checked Dawnglare for set EV and box EV, and it's still, Oath is, with masterpieces, you're looking at $40 a box. Average EV. And that's the type of thing, which, hooray analytics, that really drives the prices on that sealed product. So I would not expect, Kaladesh and Aether Revolt are the exception rather than the rule.
Yes.
Because of the masterpieces they had.
Mm-hmm. It's just like the original Zendikar is driven by fetch lands and the Trash for Treasure. And when I say original, I mean, is it the C boxes, supposedly? Yeah.
Yeah, the fat packs that had the hidden gems or whatever.
And the regular boxes, the first run of everything from original Zendikar is driven by the hidden treasures. After that, it's fetch lands and like some other $20 and $30 cards, and that set would have taken a long time to come back up. Basically, until fetch lands crested past 50.
Yeah.
The set would have taken just as long to come back.
Yep.
So, just because we were just looking at a lower print run, and the spread of rares was much larger than that in Cons of Tarkir. It just was not going to happen once it fell out of standard.
No, absolutely not.
But, well, that said, though, move into picks of the week, and I'll go first because I mentioned this earlier. So, my pick is related to technically the best of one format, but it's kind of a long time coming on this card. It's Omniscience. Let me get up there. So Omniscience reprinted in M19, and it spikes up. We can see in the chart, and then just tanks. And I think it was somewhere in the $5 to $6 range up until last week, which is ridiculous for this card. Sure, it's really not in Legacy anymore. Omnitel is still a deck. You can win with Searing Wind if you want, because I think that's hilarious.
Yeah.
And the original printing from whatever, it's 2013.
Yep.
Excuse me, it's about $8. But this is a card that, outside of EDH and a handful of Legacy players keeping them in their binder, did not really crop up again until the Arena Boys video last week, where Riley Knight and company played it in their Mastermind acquisition deck. And the one thing I didn't figure out, because I didn't have time to search for the 7.0 or whatever they are arena lists, was whether or not the original version of the Esper Masterminds deck was playing it.
I don't think it was.
I don't think.
But I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. They said they Arena Boysed up the list, and I think the Omniscience and a Way to Go Infinite was part of that. Basically, mill your opponent out before you draw out your deck. And going to the Mythic Invitational, I wasn't sure if this card would pop up there or not. If it did, then I would expect it to just finally rock it. Otherwise, this card is at a low we have only seen since last October, so going on a year. It rotates out
when it got reprinted. Yeah,
it rotates out this of Standard September-ish, somewhere in there.
Yeah, this fall.
Yeah, from there until we get another reprinting, this card is just going to climb. Yeah, this card literally says do whatever you want.
Yep,
you play
pretty
it.
much.
Yep, it is your combo workhorse in EDH. It, like I said, while it is not played currently in Legacy, the option is there. You can sneak it in with Show and Tell. You can Academy Rector it in. You can hardcast the Ding Dong if you want. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The only place it's not being played right now is Modern, because you can't really cheat in enchantments. But there should still be enough of a driver to really get it in there.
Yeah. So I originally was going to pick Mastermind's Acquisition, but then War spoilers started coming out. So I changed my pick.
Yep.
Side note, Secret Cabal tech pick, Foil Russian New Karn, Workshops tech. Anyways, so my pick changed actually to Runaway Steamkin. Mm-hmm. So Runaway Steamkin has done work the last couple GPs we've had coverage. It did work at the Mythic Invitational and the Mono Red list. And we have Proliferate back.
Yes.
So if Proliferate is back and it is an Is It mechanic, or even if it just stays blue, you can run in, Is It Frenzy.
Yep.
Runaway Steamkin becomes a very, very good win condition. Because so far I think we have 2 spells that proliferate. Whatever. All you need is 1 instant or sorcery, 1 non-creature spell that does something and proliferates, and all of a sudden Steamkin is busted in half. So right now, I think its low is at or below $1 on this card. When this card first came out, it was a $3 to $4 buy list, and I think we could actually get back to that. No joke. If Proliferate and the rest of the set gets good, I definitely think it's the type of thing that you're going to see, week 1, all of a sudden people are trying to break this in half, because it's always easier when a new set comes out to find the 10 best threats than the 20 best answers. And one of the 10 best threats already exists in the format. It just gets a little bit better.
Yes.
That said, I see this as a, pick it up now and pump and dump for me. It's a short-term turnaround. I don't think it's going to be that good long-term in Standard, but I think for unsettled meta right after War release, this card is insane.
I think so too. I worked GP Montreal, which was Guilds of Rav release weekend, and we had no problem moving these cards for like 7 or 8 CAD.
Yeah.
Release weekend, we were, as soon as they were in the case and then gone. People had no problem forking over any amount of money for these things.
Yeah. It's just the type of thing that I can see being short term a really good opportunity to double up at $1.
Yep.
I don't think it has any problem hitting $2 buy list.
No. I think this is also a fine hold long term, because it is an elemental, and there is that weird Niv Magus elemental combo deck in Modern where you basically just eat everything off the stack with Niv Magus. and this thing gives you mana to keep churning out your
It
spells.
does. It does.
And there's also elemental aggro. Damn it, I forgot the. So Rage Forger is kind of the crux of the deck, and it's very similar. You don't need spells off the stack with it. You just make like impossibly hard to handle creatures. It's a Caleb Durward special, so it's great. The buy list on it was like 40 some cents on Card Kingdom, which is about a third of the price on TCG, like you said, the low. Checking Omniscience, because I forgot to do that. We were looking at about a $2 spread in Omniscience. CK is buying them for about $5 for the 2013, and you can buy them off TCG for $7-ish, maybe a little less than that, depending on condition. So we are getting to a point where eventually, in time, those will
start to catch up.
Yeah, they will. But I like Steamkin actually more as a long-term hold if you can get them cheaper in trade rather than in cash, or if you're collection buying, then I think it's a perfect place to get them. Card Kingdom's offering 30 cents. Man, if you could buy them at 35 even, that's fine.
Yeah, true.
This is definitely a card that has like weird appeal for later on.
Yeah.
Like if you're the
That's fair.
if you're buying cards to be able to play them now or later, I think Steamkin at any point before it pops, you're gonna have to wait. Like if it does nothing and then pops and then does nothing again, you're just gonna have to bide your time and sit on it and hope that it does nothing until rotation.
Yeah.
So just have to wait for that flashpoint. But other than that, guys, I believe that's it for today. We're gonna sign out here. You can catch me on Twitter at HaltIamReptar.
At Thirsty Sizzler. You can catch us at
MtG Cabalcast on Twitter, Patreon, and I think our YouTube channel is MtG Cabalcast finally.
It is finally, yes. Also, just another friendly reminder, we'll be tweeting out the link regularly for the charity middle school event coming up in May in the Midwest. And we are also co-sponsoring a weekly stream for middle school because, again, shill, baby, shill.
Yeah. Eventually, at some point, I'm going to make it a point to play that format in person.
Yeah.
I got everything
somewhere.
And we are still holding, or rather, still taking entries for the UMA box via our Patreon. Yep. So, get in on that before we raffle it off in the next couple of weeks. But, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Catch you later.